What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Abe, and I'm back with another video, and I'm excited about this one because we're gonna go ahead and talk about trend lines. Do trend lines work? Are they valid? Are trend lines trapped? The one thing that you really find out, guys, when you start doing your research is that everybody has their own opinions on whether trend lines are valid or whether you should use them or whether you should be avoiding them because they could be potential traps that are building liquidity so that you can go ahead and get liquidated. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, before we even get into this video, family, I want to go ahead and just give a massive shout out to my Noti gang members. I see we got this one right here, this one right here. Shout out to you guys for being a part of the gang. I appreciate you for going ahead and turning your notifications on so that you're updated for every single banger that I am going to continue dropping moving forward here on this YouTube channel. So big shout out to you guys. And if you want to be a part of Noti gang, it's as simple as being subscribed to the channel, making sure that your post notifications or your video notifications are on, and dropping a Noti gang in the comments down below. And you never know, your name could pop up in my next video that I'm about to create for you guys. So we're not going to waste too much time with this banger. Let's go ahead and get right into it, and I'm going to bring you guys right to the charts so that we can see exactly if trend lines are valid and if you should be focusing on creating trend lines. Let's get it. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Like I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about trend lines today and whether you should utilize them to help you out with your trading journey or if you should avoid them because they're more looked at as traps that the market makers like to create. Now, before we even go ahead and talk about trend lines, let's break down exactly how to identify a trend in itself. So very simply, there are three types of trends that we really want to focus on or that we're going to identify in these markets. The first one is going to be the uptrend. The second one is going to be the downtrend. And then the third one is going to be the sideways trend, right? Or when the market is range bound, when it's just going sideways. So these are the three types of trends that we are going to identify. When we are looking at an uptrend, guys, we know it's an uptrend market because it is creating a sequence of higher highs and higher lows in the market, right? Higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. That's an uptrend. A downtrend, we're creating a sequence of lower lows and lower highs in the market. Lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and so on and so forth. And a sideways trend, we're literally doing exactly just that. We're going sideways and we are stuck inside of a range. That is how to identify the trend in itself. And just keep in mind that there is always going to be three trends that you're going to be able to identify. Now, when it comes to trend lines, right, all we are using a trend line for is to help us guide structure, right? A lot of people, guys, again, the side over here that utilizes trend lines, when they are looking at trend lines, they're utilizing it as another clue as to when they could potentially enter the market, right? Most people like to say is that added confluence. If you line up a trend line with a level of structure or support and resistance, most people that utilize trend lines, in their opinion, that's a good opportunity to actually jump into the market because you have that type of confluence. So let's actually go ahead and break down exactly how this will look like. So again, if we're in a downtrending market, we're going to see something like this. Now, the thing about trend lines, guys, is that 2 points creates a trend line, a third touch to that trend line, and a third rejection from that trend line can validate that trend line. Okay, so it needs 2 points to actually create a trend line, but a third reaction off of that trend line or a rejection can validate that trend line. And now that's for a downtrending example. Now, if we're looking at it from an uptrending example, similar concept, right? If we are creating an uptrending market, you need 2 points to actually create the trend line, but you need that third point to try to validate the strength or the weakness of that trend line. Now, what a lot of traders typically like to do that utilize trend lines is, again, they want to line up for an entry. They want to make sure that they have the reactions that they look for, the rejections, but they also want to make sure that it lines up with a level of structure. That is usually confluence enough on top of other things that can give them the okay to say, yo, I might want to jump into this position. So that is pretty much what creates a trend line. 2 points creates a trend line. 3 points validates the trend line. Now, another thing, guys, when we are looking at a downtrending market, you want to connect the lower highs to create that trend line. Remember what I said, right? In a downturn, we're creating a series of lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, and lower highs. So you want to connect the lower highs to look for that continuation of the trend. As a downtrending market, as long as the market stays below that trend line, typically you're good to look for continuations. Now, there is the flip side. Once again, like I mentioned, the uptrend. In an uptrend, we're creating a series of higher highs and higher lows in this market. So you want to connect the higher lows for this trend line to actually create it. 2 touches creates it. A third validates it. All right. That's as simple as it gets when it comes to looking at trend lines. Now, let's actually go ahead and get to the actual price and show you guys how it can actually look. Now, again, trend lines are going to be subjective. I know the question that I'm going to get is, Abel, how do you create trend lines? Do you use the wicks? Do you use the candlestick bodies? And I'm going to be honest, guys, whenever I do utilize a trend line, because I'm not going to say that I don't, right? I'm not going to say that I use them as much as I used to, right? I do still use them at times, right? But when I do use them, I'm not focused so much on making it perfect. I'm not worried about that. I'm just making sure that I'm looking at this trend line and I'm utilizing it as a guide when I'm trying to look for opportunities. This right here is a downtrending market. This right here is the trend line that is helping us identify that this market is continuously going down. Look at 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touches validates it. And typically you want to look for more touches now to continue in that trend. So that is how it looks like in a downtrending market. All right, now let's look at it from an uptrending perspective, right? So we have this low over here. And then after this low was created, we started creating higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, right? It's identifying that this is an uptrending market. When we create the uptrend, you want to find the low of the market and then go ahead and extend it out. Okay, we have low, touch number 2. This is number 1, number 2, number 3. That typically validates the trend line itself. As long as the market typically stays above it, you want to continue looking for buys in this market. That's as simple as it gets. Now, can you utilize trend lines to absolutely take trades? Absolutely, you can. Don't listen to anybody, guys. Again, it really depends on your style of trading. You can utilize trend lines to actually win and become profitable consistently. Now, let's also look at the flip side as well and why some traders might actually avoid utilizing trend lines. And this is going to be more from an institutional way of thinking. It's a fact. This market, guys, is liquidity driven. The market is going to go where there is liquidity positioned. So these big institutions, these big market makers, the biggest banks, so that they can actually have enough liquidity for them to place the trades that they truly want to place. So when we're looking at trend lines, you have to understand when people are looking at these trend lines, guys, and they're trying to figure out whether it's a good time to actually jump in based off of a reaction. A lot of the times why a lot of traders do not like utilizing trend lines is because you get things like this. You get false breakouts. And these false breakouts can also be called potential liquidity grabs, because if you're trading a trend line and you're trying to trade directly off of that trend line, most of the time, most traders are going to place their stop losses directly on the other side of that trend line. They'll find the lowest wick, the lowest engulfing candle, and the wick below that, and then they want to go ahead and jump in, which creates pools of liquidity on the other side of these trend lines. So again, there's no wrong way to do this. It's either you're going to trade the trend line and deal with the potential fake outs that could occur, that could be considered as liquidity grabs, or you can say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on the trend line too much. I'm just going to really focus on structure, focus on areas of liquidity, and then I'm just going to rely on that itself. Again, there's no wrong way to do this. It really just depends on your style of trading. So guys, those are the reasons why, and very basic way of breaking it down. Like I said, I'm going to keep things very basic, guys, in these videos, because again, I want to go ahead and make sure that we're providing clarity to every single one of you guys. Now, later on, I'm going to be creating a lot more videos as to why I actually got away from relying on trend lines. And it is because, again, I understand the importance of liquidity in this market now. My opinion, right? I have a good understanding of how, right, these institutions really like to work. So we're going to create more advanced videos on that later on down the road. But for now, guys, this is as basic and as simple as it gets. Can you use a trend line? Yes, you can. Just understand how to create them, understand what creates a trend line in itself, what validates a trend line, and then as long as price is respecting it, continue doing what you're doing. But is it also wrong to not use a trend line? No, it is not, because sometimes you can avoid some of the fake outs that the market will create if you're only trying to trade off of a trend line. It truly depends on what you want to get from it, guys. So again, don't overcomplicate trading. Trading needs to be simplified, guys, because trading is simple and it should be simple, but trading is not easy. Completely different things. Don't beat yourself up too much, guys, on whether a trend line is perfect, whether you should use them, whether you should not. Just figure out what works best for you. Typically, trend lines work best for a lot of newer traders because it's easy to identify potential areas of structure. Right, so guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this very quick video. Like I said, we're going to get into a lot more bangers just like this one that are eventually going to go a little bit more advanced as well, right? Because I know a lot of you guys probably understand trend lines, right? But we're going to go ahead and break down a lot more advanced stuff on how to utilize trend lines if you do want to utilize them, and also how to really read and react from trend lines as well. So family, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. I'm going to continue dropping bangers for y'all moving forward, like I said, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy every single one. Shout out to my Noti gang once again. If you guys are not subscribed, make sure to go ahead and be subscribed. Turn on the post notifications or the video notifications immediately so that you can get updated with every single banger that I drop.